ever feel like you're just drowning in data?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, seriously, emails and spreadsheets and news feeds.
It's like everywhere you look.
It really is information overload.
It is.
So today, we're doing a deep dive into a secret weapon
Okay.
to help make sense of it all, really.
All right.
Aggregation functions. Now, I know.
Yeah.
It might sound kind of,
A little dry.
yeah, a little bit, maybe like some boring math class.
Yeah.
But trust me on this one.
Okay.
These things are like superpowers
Superpowers, huh?
for your brain.
Okay, I like it.
Turning mountains of data
Mountains of data.
into, meaningful insights.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So we're really excited to have you here today
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
to kind of unpack this whole thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Tell us, why these functions are so powerful
Okay, sure.
and where we actually see them in action.
So aggregation functions, they're really all about simplifying.
Simplifying?
Yeah, simplifying the complex.
Oh,
Instead of getting lost in all those individual data points, they help us see the bigger picture.
okay. So I'm intrigued,
Yeah.
but before we go and unleash our inner data superheroes,
Right.
let's break down what these functions actually are.
Absolutely. In essence, aggregation functions take a bunch of inputs
Okay.
and combine them into a single meaningful output.
Okay.
Think of it like summarizing a dense book.
Okay.
You're basically extracting those key themes and takeaways
Okay.
without having to read every single word.
So instead of getting bogged down in the details,
Yeah.
you get the gist.
You got it.
That's already making me feel a little bit less overwhelmed.
Good.
So let's explore some of the most common types of these aggregation functions.
Absolutely. So we have SUM,
Right.
which is pretty straightforward.
Okay.
It just adds up all the values in a data set.
So if I'm trying to figure out how much I spent online last month,
Yes.
instead of going through every single purchase,
Exactly.
the SEM function would just give me the total.
That's right.
That's way more efficient to my current method.
What's that?
Burying my head in the sand,
Ah,
hoping for the best.
the classic approach.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of hoping for the best, let's talk about average.
Average. Okay.
Or mean.
Okay.
This function gives us the central tendency of the data.
Like my average monthly grocery bill.
Exactly. Yeah.
That would actually be pretty helpful for budgeting,
Right.
although I'm a little scared of what that number might be.
We all have those areas where we'd rather not know the average.
Right.
But on a more serious note,
Okay.
think about how useful averages are in understanding things like, say, the average temperature
Okay.
for a month, or the average performance of a stock over time.
You mentioned averages. It's making me think about, weather forecasts.
Mm-hmm.
Do they use these aggregation functions?
Absolutely. Weather forecasting relies heavily on aggregating data from numerous weather stations.
Okay.
They use averages to get an overall sense of temperature trends, but they also use other functions like minimum and maximum to track extremes.
So the high and low temperatures we see in the forecast, those are coming from aggregation functions too.
That's right.
So it's all connected.
Exactly. Now, let's move on to count.
Count. Okay.
This function simply tells us how many data points exist in a data set.
So if a website wants to track the number of visitors each day,
Yes.
they'd use the count function.
Precisely.
Simple but powerful.
Exactly. And then we have median.
Median. Okay.
Which gives us the middle value in a data set. This is particularly useful when outliers might skew the average.
Okay, so why would you use the median instead of the average?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to understand.
Okay.
Imagine looking at income data. If there's a small group of billionaires, the average income could be misleadingly high.
Okay.
The median, however, would give us a better sense of the typical income for the majority of people.
So it's about finding the right tool for the job.
Exactly.
What about understanding how spread out the data is?
That's where variance and standard deviation come in.
Variance and standard deviation.
Okay. They tell us how much the data points deviate from average.
So a high standard deviation means the data is all over the place.
Precisely.
Gotcha.
For example, if you're comparing two investment portfolios,
Okay.
the one with the higher standard deviation would be considered riskier because its returns are more volatile.
That's incredibly helpful. It's like getting a behind-the-scenes look
It is.
at how these functions actually work in the real world.
Absolutely. And the applications are vast.
Okay.
For example, e-commerce companies use aggregation functions to analyze customer reviews. They might go beyond simply averaging ratings and use more complex functions to gauge customer sentiment.
Wait, so you're telling me companies can actually predict what I'll buy next
To a certain extent, yes.
based on aggregated data?
Right.
That's kind of scary,
It can be.
but also fascinating.
It is. They can identify patterns in customer behavior and preferences,
Okay.
which allows them to personalize recommendations.
Wow. So from tracking our steps to influencing our shopping habits, these functions are working behind the scenes
Yeah,
in so many ways.
they really are.
Okay, so to wrap things up,
Right.
aggregation functions, they take tons of data
Tons of it.
and turn it into something we can actually understand
Exactly.
and use.
Right.
And they're used in everything,
It seems like everything.
from weather forecasting to finance to online shopping.
Precisely. They are the bridge between raw data and actionable insights.
I have to say, I started this deep dive feeling a bit intimidated
Really?
by this whole concept of aggregation functions,
Mm-hmm.
but now I see how powerful and relevant they are to everyday life.
They really are.
It's like having a secret decoder ring
A decoder ring.
for the data-driven world.
I love that analogy.
So here's a final thought for you listening out there.
Right.
Think about a problem you face where having a summary of data would be incredibly helpful.
Okay.
Could an aggregation function be the key to unlocking a solution?
That's a great question to consider.
Happy aggregating.
Happy aggregating.